The frozen encounter. The wind howled across the barren tundra of Proxima 7, carrying ice crystals that stung like microscopic needles against any exposed skin. Nikolai Volkov checked the perimeter sensors one last time before retreating into the relative warmth of his insulated tent. 3 years of exile on this frozen hell had taught him to trust nothing, especially not the deceptive calm that sometimes settled over the landscape just before a killing storm. Inside, he activated the thermal regulator and watched as the temperature reading climbed from dangerously cold to merely uncomfortable. His living space was sparse but efficient: a collapsible cot, a compact field kitchen, various equipment cases doubling as furniture, and the ever-humming communication array that he maintained more out of habit than hope. Another thrilling night in paradise, he muttered, pouring a measure of synthetic whiskey into a titanium cup. The liquid burned pleasantly going down, a small comfort in a place that offered few. He was halfway through reviewing geological survey data on his tablet when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong in the howling symphony outside. Not the wind, not the ice shifting, not any of the sparse wildlife that occasionally wandered too close to his camp. It was a deliberate sound, a presence. Nikolai set his cup down slowly, his hand drifting to the pulse pistol at his hip. 3 years alone had made him paranoid, but paranoia kept you alive when you were hiding from both sides of an interstellar war. The sound came again, a light pressure against the entrance seal of his tent. Not forceful, almost polite. "If you're a snow leopard trying to eat my heater again, I'm charging rent this time," he called out, trying to mask his unease with humor. With practiced movements, he unlatched the entrance, pulse pistol ready but concealed at his side. The bitter cold rushed in immediately, but it was the figure standing in the entrance that froze his blood more effectively than any Arctic gale. She stood just beyond the threshold, tall, slender, with iridescent skin that shifted between blue and violet in the dim light. Her eyes were completely black except for vertical pupils that glowed with an amber light. Long pointed ears swept back from her angular face, twitching occasionally like sensitive antennae. The unmistakable features of a Varashi warrior, but not just any Varashi. Her. "Talia," he breathed, the name escaping his lips before he could stop it. She didn't smile, didn't speak. Just stood there, her combat suit glittering with frost crystals, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. A thin scar that hadn't been there before traced her left cheekbone, disappearing into her hairline. "Are you going to invite me in, or have humans forgotten basic hospitality along with their promises?" Her voice was exactly as he remembered it, melodic but with an edge that could cut through steel. Nikolai stepped aside, holstering his weapon. "Come in, though I think we both know this isn't a social call." She stepped inside, bringing with her the scent of ozone and something alien, a spicy, metallic aroma unique to her species. The tent suddenly felt much smaller. "You're still alive," he said, because it seemed like the most relevant observation. "Intelligence reported your entire squad was wiped out at the Epsilon conflict." "Intelligence," she said, the word dripping with disdain, "is often unintelligent." She removed her outer gear, revealing more of the form-fitting combat suit beneath. "My squad was indeed wiped out. I simply refused to join them." Nikolai gestured to the thermal unit. "Warm yourself. I've got ration bars and something that pretends to be coffee." She ignored his offer, her gaze sweeping around the tent with military precision, cataloging exits, potential weapons, communications equipment. "Old habits. You're still a deserter," she observed, those amber pupilled eyes finally settling on him. "Prefer conscientious objector," he corrected, returning to his seat and taking another sip of whiskey. "And you're still stating the obvious. Some things never change." A slight twitch at the corner of her mouth might have been the ghost of a smile, but it vanished too quickly to be sure. "Why are you here, Talia? Last I checked, your people and mine weren't exactly exchanging friendship bracelets." She reached into a concealed pocket and produced a small device no larger than her palm. With a twist of her long, 6-fingered hand, It projected a holographic display into the air between them, a three-dimensional map of the surrounding region, with pulsing red markers scattered across it. Tracker drones, she explained. Military grade, set to your biometric signature. Nikolai felt his mouth go dry. Human military or Varashi? Neither, and both. She manipulated the display, zooming in on one of the markers. Private contractors, using hybrid technology. They've been tracking your movements for the past 17 days. 17? He began, then stopped. And how do you know this? She deactivated the device. Because they've been tracking me for twice that long. Nikolai stood, pacing the small confines of the tent. So you led them straight to me? Was that the plan? Use me as bait while you slip away? Her eyes flashed dangerously. If I wanted you dead, Nikolai, I would have left your location on the military channels 3 years ago, when I first found you. The statement hung between them like a physical thing. He turned slowly to face her. You knew where I was? All this time? I know many things I shouldn't, she replied, her voice softer now. Including why you left the Human Defense Coalition. Nikolai felt an old anger stirring. You mean after I discovered they were testing biological weapons on Varashi civilians? Weapons I helped design believing they were medical nanites? He shook his head. Not exactly a difficult moral choice. Yet not many humans made it, she countered. Outside, the wind had died down to an eerie whisper. Too sudden, too quiet. Talia noticed it too, her ears twitching toward the entrance. We need to move, she said, already gathering her gear. That silence isn't natural. Nikolai quickly accessed the perimeter sensors on his tablet. All readings normal, but something felt wrong. He'd survived this long by trusting instincts over instruments. There's an abandoned research outpost about 12 kilometers north, he said, hastily packing essential supplies. Underground facility, shielded from most scans. Talia nodded. I have transport hidden in the eastern ridge. We can be there, before the storm front hits. You assume I'm going with you? Nikolai said, though he continued packing. She paused, those alien eyes seeming to look through him rather than at him. You assume you have a choice. They're not tracking us to deliver gratitude. As if to emphasize her point, one of his perimeter sensors suddenly flashed red, then went dark, then another, and another. Frequency jammers, Nikolai muttered. They're here. They moved with practiced efficiency, two soldiers who remembered the rhythm of preparation even after years apart. Within minutes, the tent was collapsed. Essential, gear packed, and all traces of long-term habitation erased. As they slipped into the frozen night, Nikolai glanced back at the spot where his temporary home had stood. You know, he said, just once I'd like to be hunted after I've had breakfast. Talia's eyes gleamed in the darkness. If we survive this, I'll cook you a meal myself. Now I have 2 reasons to stay alive, he replied. They vanished into the swirling snow, 2 fugitives from opposing sides of a war bound by secrets that powerful people would kill to protect. Behind them, silent drones glided over the abandoned campsite, their sensors seeking prey that had already slipped away. But on a world of ice and shadow, nothing remained hidden for long. Part 2, Secrets Beneath the Ice Dawn on Proxima 7 wasn't so much a sunrise as a grudging lightening of the perpetual gloom. Nikolai and Talia had traveled through the night, making use of her transport, a modified Varashi scout vessel barely large enough for 2, its curved lines and organic design contrasting sharply with the angular human technology he was accustomed. So they abandoned the vessel in a narrow ravine, continuing on foot for the final stretch to avoid detection. The abandoned research facility was exactly where Nikolai remembered. A low, dome-shaped structure half buried in the ice, its original purpose disguised as a geological survey station. Still operational? Talia asked, her breath forming clouds in the bitter cold. Nikolai nodded, brushing snow from the access panel. Emergency power, at least. The Coalition built these places to last. His access codes still worked, something that surprised him more than it should have. The heavy doors ground open with reluctance, revealing a darkened corridor beyond. "They want us to come here," Talia observed, her hand resting on her weapon. "Probably," Nikolai agreed. "But we need answers, and this place has the most comprehensive communication array on the planet." Secrets beneath the ice dawn on Proxima 7 wasn't so much a sunrise as a grudging lightening of the perpetual gloom. Nikolai and Talia had traveled through the night, making use of her transport, a modified Vorashi scout vessel barely large enough for two, its curved lines and organic design contrasting sharply with the angular human technology he was accustomed to. They abandoned the vessel in a narrow ravine, continuing on foot for the final stretch to avoid detection. The abandoned research facility was exactly where Nikolai remembered, a low, dome-shaped structure half buried in the ice, its original purpose disguised as a geological survey station. "Still operational?" Talia asked, her breath forming clouds in the bitter cold. Nikolai nodded, brushing snow from the access panel. Emergency power, at least. The Coalition built these places to last. His access code still worked, something that surprised him more than it should have. The heavy doors ground open with reluctance, revealing a darkened corridor beyond. "They want us to come here," Talia observed, her hand resting on her weapon. "Probably," Nikolai agreed. "But we need answers, and this place has the most comprehensive communication array on the planet." They descended into darkness, emergency lights flickering to life as motion sensors detected their presence. The facility had been abandoned in haste. Workstations still displayed data. Personal items remained where they'd been left. Frozen meals still sat in the commissary, now covered in a thick layer of frost. "Command center is this way," Nikolai said, leading them deeper into the complex. The command center was a circular room dominated by a large hollow projector in its center. Nikolai activated the main console and the room hummed to life, displays illuminating one by one. "We have about 30 minutes before the power signature registers on any orbital scans," he said, fingers dancing across the interface. "Let's make them count." Talia connected her tracking device to the main system. "Access the military archives. Search for Project Chimera." Nikolai glanced at her. "That's a high-security classification. Even my override codes won't—" "Use this," she interrupted, handing him a data crystal. "Joint authorization." The crystal glowed faintly, pulsing with stored information. "Where did you get this?" "From the person who sent me to find you," she replied. "Someone who believes both our species are being manipulated into continuing this war." Nikolai inserted the crystal, and immediately the screens filled with classified data, project files, genetic sequences, weapons specifications. "Project Chimera," he read aloud. "Experimental program to create hybrid soldiers using combined human and Vorashi DNA." He scrolled through more files, his expression darkening. Test subjects included captured Vorashi warriors and human volunteers. Talia moved beside him, her fingers tracing a particular sequence on the screen. Not volunteers, conscripts, soldiers who questioned orders, scientists who raised ethical concerns. Her eyes met his. "People like you." The implications hit Nikolai, like a physical blow. They weren't just tracking us, they were hunting us for this. A new file appeared on the screen. A personnel list. Both their names were highlighted. "Compatible genetic markers," Talia read. "High neural plasticity. Exceptional adaptive response to experimental procedures." They've been monitoring us, Nikolai realized. Our entire military careers were a screening process. A warning flashed on the perimeter sensors. Multiple contacts approaching. "We need to move," Talia said, downloading crucial files. Nikolai shook his head. "No, we need to end this." He accessed the command protocols. "This facility has a broadcast array powerful enough to reach both Coalition and Vorashi High Command. We can transmit everything, the evidence, the conspiracy, all of it." "They'll just deny it," Talia argued. "Claim it's fabricated." "Not if we include our genetic profiles as authentication," Nikolai countered. The markers they're looking for, they're unique, impossible to fake. Understanding dawned in her alien eyes. A genetic signature, proving we were selected. Exactly. He began preparing the transmission sequence. But one of us needs to stay to ensure it completes. The other needs to create a diversion. The facility trembled as something heavy landed on its outer structure. Their pursuers had arrived. Talia checked her weapons. "I'll buy you time." Nikolai caught her arm. "Why did you really come looking for me, Talia? After all this time?" For a moment, her warrior's facade cracked, revealing something vulnerable beneath. "Because you were the only human who ever saw my people as more than enemies. And because—" The facility shook again, cutting her off. "Tell me later," Nikolai said, squeezing her arm briefly before turning back to the console. She nodded once, then moved toward the door. Weapon ready. "Don't die, human." "Wasn't planning on it, Varashi," he replied, already focused on the transmission sequence. The next 20 minutes passed in a blur of focused activity and distant weapons fire. Nikolai fought against security protocols and sabotage attempts while Talia kept their pursuers at bay, her occasional transmissions becoming increasingly terse as the situation deteriorated. Finally, the system chimed. "Transmission complete. Authentication verified. Receipt acknowledged by both command structures." Relief flooded through him, quickly replaced by concern for Talia. He grabbed his own weapon and moved toward the sounds of combat, navigating corridors now filled with smoke and the acrid smell of energy weapons. He found her in the main entrance hall, pinned down behind a collapsed support beam, exchanging fire with shadowy figures at the facility entrance. Black-clad operatives with no insignia, corporate mercenaries, not military. Nikolai provided covering fire, allowing Talia to fall back to his position. Blood the color of indigo seeped from a wound in her shoulder. "It's done," he told her. "Both sides have the data. Then let's not waste the opportunity," she replied grimly. Together they fought their way to a secondary exit, through maintenance tunnels and emergency shafts, finally emerging onto the frozen surface half a kilometer from the main entrance. Behind them, explosions rocked the facility, the mercenaries destroying evidence of their presence, but it was too late. The truth was out. They struggled through deepening snow toward higher ground, each step more difficult than the last. Talia's wound was slowing her down, though she refused to acknowledge it. Finally, they reached a ridge overlooking the burning research facility. In the distance, ships were already entering the atmosphere, coalition vessels racing to secure the site. "What happens now?" Nikolai asked, helping Talia sit against a sheltered outcropping. She looked up at the sky where more ships were appearing, these with the distinctive organic curves of Varashi design. "Now we become very inconvenient heroes," she said, a hint of dark humor in her voice. "Or martyrs, depending on which commanders reach us first." Nikolai settled beside her, sharing his thermal blanket. "And us?" Talia's eyes met his. That alien gaze somehow more familiar to him now than his own reflection. There is no us in a galaxy still learning. There never needed to be an us and them. "Perhaps," Nikolai replied, watching the approaching ships. "That's exactly why there needs to be." As the first shuttles touched down on the ice below, Talia's six-fingered hand found his. Neither spoke of what would come next. In a war built on lies, they had chosen truth. Whatever followed, reunion or separation, pardon or punishment, they had broken the cycle. And in a universe of cold calculations and species prejudice, that single act of defiance might just be enough to change everything.